had to do it. No.
I used to believe that silence was a kind of safety. That if I stayed still enough, quiet enough, the past would lose interest in me. But silence, it's just a slower kind of drowning. You don't hear yourself sinking until the water is already at your throat. And by the time you realize it, it's too late. I learned that lesson years ago. And yet, I still kept pretending. That morning started like all the others, built on small lies I'd learned to live with. The sun hadn't fully risen. The apartment was cold. And my daughter was still half asleep, humming to herself as I made her lunch. I moved through the motions the way people do when they're trying to convince themselves life is normal. Peanut butter sandwich, crust cut off, a sticky note on her lunchbox telling her to be brave today, a forced smile in the mirror so she wouldn't see the cracks behind my eyes. I told myself we were safe. I told myself the shadows outside were just shadows. I told myself the past had forgotten my name. But the past has teeth. And that morning, it finally bit down. Mummy. Look. Eva's voice was soft, sweet, in the way only a 6-year-old's can be. I turned, ready to smile at whatever new masterpiece she'd scribbled onto the back of my grocery list. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor, crayons scattered around her like confetti, her cheeks still round with sleep. Her hair, sticking out in uneven little tufts. She held up a drawing, and my heart stopped. It was a man's arm. Strong. Tan. Violet. And wrapped around it, drawn in thick black strokes, was a raven with its wings spread wide. A blade curved beneath it like a crescent moon. I knew that tattoo. I had traced it with trembling fingers once. In a lifetime that didn't feel like mine anymore. My throat tightened. Sweetheart, where did you see that? She shrugged. Like she'd drawn a flower, or a house, or any normal thing little girls doodle in the morning before school. The nice man outside my school, she said. Yesterday, he had it on his arm. He bought me candy. He said, I draw pretty. Cold flooded my chest so fast I thought I might faint. The man, the tattoo, the candy, the praise. No. 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 What did you tell him? I whispered. Did he ask your name? She shook her head, swinging her ponytail. No. He already knew. I froze. He said, You must be Mira's girl. Mummy, how did he know you? The air went sharp. My vision pulsed at the edges. I hadn't heard the name Mira spoken by a stranger in years. No one here knew us by that name. No one was supposed to. My hands trembled so badly I dropped the knife I was holding. Something inside me, something I'd kept locked away, ripped open. Eva. Baby. Put your shoes on. I whispered. We have to go. But school. We're not going to school. Why? Did I do something wrong? I forced my fingers to stay gentle on her shoulders. You didn't do anything wrong. Mommy just needs you close today. Hurry. While she scrambled for her shoes, I scanned the apartment. Mind racing. The windows. The alley behind our building. The store across from her school, the one I told her never to cross alone. How close had he gotten? How long had he been watching? And why now? I grabbed a duffel bag I kept under the bed, half-packed, since the day we moved here. A habit I never broke. A reminder that running was the only thing I was good at. 10 minutes later. We were in the car, pulling away from the curb. He didn't look back. I couldn't. The city blurred past us, grey buildings, crowded sidewalks. A world that didn't know it had just lost us. My hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. And in the back seat, Eva swung her legs, humming softly, unaware that our entire life had just shattered. as miles stretched between us and the city. Memories crept in. Memories I had spent years burying. Blood on marble floors. A gunshot that echoed through my bones. A man whispering my name like a curse or a prayer. Raven Lucetti. The kind of man you never really escape. I told myself he was dead. I told myself, even if he wasn't, he'd never find me. But I'd been wrong before. 2 hours passed before Eva grew restless. I pulled into the first diner. I saw a narrow place off the highway with peeling paint and a flickering neon sign. The kind of place where people mind their own business. Inside, it smelled like old coffee and fried food. A safe smell. A normal smell. I ordered Eva pancakes. Extra syrup. Trying to pretend my hands weren't still shaking under the table. She giggled when the whipped cream made a little mountain on her plate. I tried to smile back, but my thoughts wouldn't settle. Who had found us? Why had they waited all these years? And why show Eva the tattoo? Why not come directly for me? I wrapped my hands around a mug of coffee. Too cold to drink. Too hot to hold. My heart had only just begun to slow down when the bell above the diner door chimed, and everything inside me went silent. He stepped in like he'd been carved from the night itself. Black shirt clinging to broad shoulders. Sleeves rolled to reveal forearms mapped with veins and ink. His hair a little longer than I remembered. A faint scar splitting his brow. Older. Sharper. More dangereuse. But unmistakable. Raven Lucetti. His eyes swept the room once calm. Calculating before landing on me. My heart tried to escape my chest. He walked toward us with the slow certainty of someone who knew exactly what kind of power he held. I stood instinctively, putting myself between him and my daughter. "You have no right to be here," I said, though my voice barely carried. He tilted his head, studying me with that same storm-grey gaze I once drowned in. "Mira." My name in his mouth was a quiet ache. "You're not easy to find." I felt my pulse in my teeth. "Go away. Raven. Whatever you want, it's not here." A faint smirk touched his lips. But it wasn't cruel. Funny. "You said almost those exact words the last time we saw each other." His eyes flicked to Eva, who was coloring again. Blissfully unaware. "She looks just like you." "Don't." I snapped. "Don't talk about her." He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "Someone else is hunting you, and they're not mine." The room around us seemed to tilt. "You're lying." But Raven never got the chance to answer, because in the next second, a gunshot cracked through the quiet diner. Glass exploded behind me. People screamed. Eva shrieked and ducked under the table. I whipped toward the window, heart slamming against my ribs. A figure stood outside, half hidden behind a gas pump, pointing a gun directly at us. Before I could react, Raven grabbed me, pulling me and Eva down behind the table. Another bullet shattered a ketchup bottle above us. "Stay low," he ordered, his voice a lethal whisper. "You brought this here," I hissed. "I didn't bring them," he shot back. "But I'm the only one who can get you out." He peeked over the booth, fired one clean shot, and ducked again. Whoever was outside ducked too. Glass raining down. Eva clung to me, trembling. I tightened my arms around her. Raven grabbed my wrist, eyes burning. "Mira, if you want to live, get up. Now." He hesitated. I hated him. I feared him. I had spent years running from the world he came from, but the world outside that shattered window was worse. He held out his hand. Behind us came another deafening gunshot. I grabbed Eva. I grabbed his hand. And together, we ran. The last thing I saw, before the door slammed, shut behind us, Was the diner collapsing into chaos? And Raven's back as he shielded us. Gun in hand, ready for whatever waited in the night. And just like that, the past I'd spent years escaping had finally caught up. The road out of the diner wound through endless stretches of pine and darkness. Raven drove like a man who had outrun death more than once, silent, focused, one hand steady on the wheel, the other hovering near the gun at his thigh. Eva slept, curled in the back seat, her small fingers still stained with crayon. I sat beside him, heart pounding, trying to understand how my life had unraveled in a single morning. Again. Where are you taking us? I asked finally. A place no one should know. He said. Not even you once we leave. That's comforting. It's the truth. And somehow, that was worse. We drove for hours, deeper into nowhere, until the air grew colder and the trees swallowed the sky. By the time Raven pulled off the main road, the sun had bled into dusk, leaving the world silver blue. Ahead of us, perched like a quiet secret on the edge of a lake, stood a stone house with wide windows and a wraparound deck, the kind of place built for solitude, or hiding, or both. Raven shut off the engine. This is a safe house. Someone I trust owns it. Someone, I snapped under my breath. That narrows it down. He didn't answer. He climbed out and opened the back door, lifting Eva into his arms with unexpected gentleness. She stirred, leaned her cheek onto his shoulder, and sighed. My breath caught. This wasn't the Raven I remembered. Or maybe it was a part of him I'd never been allowed to see. Inside, the house smelled like cedar and cold stone. The lake shimmered through the windows, darker than ink. Raven carried Eva to a small guest room and tucked her beneath a quilt. For a moment he just stood there, his hand lingering near her hair, as if he were searching for a memory he couldn't quite touch. When he stepped back into the living room, his walls came back up. You need to tell me what's going on, I whispered. I will. But sit first. He didn't. I stayed standing, arms crossed, back stiff. My body felt wired with confusion and old resentment. He lowered himself into an armchair. Only then did I notice the stiffness in his movements, the way exhaustion clung to his skin. Eva was targeted, he said, by a faction that used to work under my family. My stomach twisted. Why her? Because they think you know something. His gaze sharpened. Something your father left behind. My father, I laughed bitterly. My father died because of your family. Because of you. For the first time since he'd re-entered my life. Raven's expression flickered, not angry, not cold, but wounded. That's not what happened, he said quietly. Oh. You're going to rewrite history now. No, he murmured. I'm going to finally tell you the part you never knew. I felt the room grow smaller. The lake outside looked frozen. Even though it kept moving, my breath fogged the air. Your father wasn't innocent. Mira, his voice dropped lower. He worked with the Lucetti family long before you ever saw me. He was helping us track a traitor inside our ranks. When he realized the traitor was my older brother, he tried to protect us. My pulse stuttered. You're lying. If I wanted to lie, don't you think I would have done it years ago? He said. Your father wasn't caught in the crossfire. He stepped into it. For me, he fared dizzy. Like the ground shifted out from under me. My father hated your family. He hated what my brother became. Raven said, not me. Then why did I see your brother standing over his body? Why did I hear the shot? His jaw clenched. And something inside him fractured. Because he took the bullet meant for you. The world dimmed. My knees went weak. A rushing sound filled my ears. No. I whispered. No. No, if that was true, Why didn't you ever find me? Why didn't you tell me? Raven's eyes softened with something like regret. Deep. Heavy. Impossible to fake. I tried. He said. I tried for years. But when I finally found you, you were already gone. Hidden. Someone helped you disappear. Someone who'd told me that running was the only way to survive. Someone who'd said Raven was the monster in the story. Everything inside me tangled into knots of grief and anger, and something dangerously close to yearning. I don't believe you, I whispered. You do, he replied softly. That's why you're shaking. I turned away, pressing my palms against the cold windowsill. Outside, the lake was a sheet of moonlit glass. My reflection trembled in it. Behind me, Raven got up. I heard his footsteps approach. Slow. Heavy with the weight of years neither of us dared to name. You think I wanted your father dead? He murmured behind me. He was more of a father to me than my own. When he died, a part of my brother died too, and the rest of him became a monster. A silence stretched between us. Thick as smoke. You weren't supposed to see any of it, he said. You weren't supposed to run. I would have protected you. I turned then, meeting his gaze. And who was going to protect me from you? His breath hitched just barely. And for once, he had no answer. That night, neither of us slept. Eva was curled safe under the quilt. Faint little snores drifting through the doorway. I sat on the couch, trying to steady my breathing. Raven stood by the window. A shadow carved in moonlight. Cigarette ember, glowing faintly between his fingers. The storm clouds gathered across the lake, rolling in, like something alive. Every few minutes, had glanced toward Eva's room softly, protectively, and I hated how my chest tightened when he did. When the first rumble of thunder rolled across the lake, Eva stirred. I tucked her back under the covers, smoothing her hair. Her face relaxed again. Peaceful for the first time in weeks. I wished I could borrow just a piece of that peace. Back in the living room, Raven watched the world outside with tense stillness. And though he didn't turn, I knew he sensed me watching him. Something lingered in the air between us. Unspoken history. Unresolved desire. Yet, regret. Before either of us could break the silence, the power flickered. Once. Twice. Then the window shattered. The storm wasn't alone. The men who'd hunted us had arrived. Gunfire cracked through the night. Shouts echoed across the deck. Rain, show me back. His voice low and fierce. Get Eva. Take her out the back. Don't look back. Go. I ran. Eva clung to me. Half asleep and terrified. Glass rained behind us. Furniture splintered. The safe house that had held our first fragile moment of truth was now tearing apart around us. Raven's bullets snapped through the air, measured. Lethal, he shouted. My name once. Then again. I pushed through the hallway door that led to the dock. The storm lashed at us. Rain like cold needles. Eva cried, burying her face in my shoulder. A sudden explosion rocked the house behind us. I turned. Raven stood framed in the doorway. Firelight casting him in gold and shadow. His eyes locked on mine, fierce. Unyielding. Run, he roared. I hesitated for one fatal heartbeat. Then the fire consumed the doorway behind him. The house groaned as flames chewed through its bones. Raven disappeared inside the smoke. Swallowed by the inferno. Raven, I screamed. But wind and thunder devoured my voice. Eva sobbed into my neck. And I ran with her into the storm. All through the night. The lake reflected the blaze. The safe house burning like a pyre. Sparks rising into the darkness. No sirens came. No help arrived. Only the storm. The fire. And the slow collapse of everything I thought I knew. By morning, the house was nothing but ash and twisted metal. They never found a body, and somewhere between the ruined walls and the blackened remains of a life I once fled, I understood something with painful clarity. I had lost Raven Lucetti once, but losing him this time felt like losing the truth I never allowed myself to hear. The months that followed felt like living inside someone else's life, quiet, small, and deceptively peaceful. Eva and I settled into a town only the map seemed to remember. A place with a single main street. A bakery that smelled like cinnamon every morning. And neighbors who waved without asking questions. We had new names. New routines. New lies to protect the fragile normal we'd stitched together. I took a job at a bookstore, owned by an older woman with soft eyes and even softer rules. The kind of place where time moved slowly, and stories lived untouched on dusty shelves. I shelved romance novels in the afternoons, worked the register at night, and pretended the world beyond the glass didn't exist. But some nights, when I closed the shop and locked the door, the silence hummed with a ghost. I wasn't ready to bury Raven. His name still ached like a bruise. I pressed too often. They never found his body. And for a long time, that absence felt like its own kind of grief. It was late December, when the first letter arrived. No return address. No stamp, just an unmarked envelope, slipped under our apartment door. Inside was a drawing. One of Eva's old ones, one she'd made months before the fire. Only this version was different. Updated. As if someone else's hand had finished it. It showed the lake house, moonlit and calm. Eva standing beside me. And on the other side, a man, tall, broad-shouldered. A raven tattoo curling down his arm. But he wasn't alone. Another figure stood beside him. Similar build. Same ink. Same blade wrapped beneath the wings. 2 men. 2 tattoos. And at the bottom, scrawled in a hand I knew too well, for her protection. Ah! My heart stuttered. I sank to the floor. Fingers trembling. Raven was alive. And he wasn't alone. I reread the note until the letters blurred. Relief warred with fear. With disbelief. With the kind of hope that hurt worse than heartbreak. I didn't tell Eva. Not yet. She was asleep. Curled beneath her blanket. Dreaming in colors I wasn't brave enough to touch. 3 days later, another package appeared. Inside was a flash drive, and a single line on a scrap of paper. Watch alone. I waited until Eva was at school, and the bookstore was empty. In the back office, beneath the hum of the old ceiling fan, I plugged the drive into the computer. The footage was grainy. A dim alley behind what looked like a rural hospital. And then a man stumbled into frame, half burned, half conscious, barely standing. He collapsed near the emergency entrance. And when a nurse turned him over, the camera caught his face. Raven. Alive. Bleeding. Breathing. I covered my mouth as tears spilled hot and fast. I watched the entire clip, then watched it again. And again. Memorizing every frame. Every ragged breath. Every sign that the man I thought I'd lost had clawed his way back into the world. Not for himself. For us. But he didn't reach out, didn't reveal himself. Didn't return. It was almost worse than mourning him. Weeks passed. Then one night, as I closed the bookstore, I felt a sensation I hadn't felt in months, a prickle at the back of my neck. A sense of being watched. Followed. Known. I turned. Across the street, under the flickering glow of a lamppost, stood a man in black. Still. Silent. Waiting. My breath halted. He stepped forward. And the streetlight revealed the faint scar slicing through his eyebrow. The rebuilt tattoo winding down his arm. The familiar, dangerous calm in his eyes. Raven. My heart broke open. He didn't move until I walked toward him. The world, shrinking to the sound of my footsteps. We stopped a few feet apart. Silence, stretching between us like a held breath. You're supposed to be dead, I whispered. He gave a small, tired smile. I was, for a while. Something inside me splintered. I wanted to scream, to hit him, to hold him, to collapse into him and never let go. Instead, I managed a trembling. Why now? His voice was quiet, rough around the edges. Because you're safe now. And I needed to see it for myself. You should have told me you were alive. I couldn't. His gaze dropped. Not until it was over. What was over? He looked up. And for the first time, I saw the weight he'd been carrying, years of violence, grief, and choices that carved him into someone both familiar and changed. The men who came after you, he said. The ones from the lake house. They won't touch you again. They won't touch anyone. You killed them, I whispered. He shook his head. No. I walked away from all of it. All of them. I burned every bridge that could lead back to you. My anger melted slow and unwilling into something softer, more fragile. Relief. Come home with me, I said quietly. He hesitated, then nodded. We walked slowly through the quiet streets, neither of us daring to speak. The world felt too delicate for words. When we stepped into the apartment, Eva looked up from her coloring book. Her eyes widened. She didn't gasp or hesitate. She simply whispered, "You came back." Raven's breath caught. He knelt, without thinking, and Eva ran into his arms like she'd been waiting her whole life. He held her with shaking hands. His forehead pressed to hers. The kind of embrace that broke something open inside me. I'd never seen Raven Lucetti tremble. Not once. Until that moment. After dinner simple. Warm. Painfully normal. We stood by the window, while Eva fell asleep on the couch. You don't have to forgive me, he murmured. I know. But I need you to understand something. I turned to him, heart in my throat. I didn't save you, because I was sorry. He said, I saved you because losing you would have killed whatever good I had left. My breath shivered out of me. You think you're the villain in my story? Raven, I whispered. But you're the reason I survived it. He looked down, almost broken by the gentleness in my voice. His hand lifted slowly, brushing a strand of hair from my face, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to touch me. For a moment, the years between us felt thin as smoke. Then he stepped back. I'm not staying. The words struck like cold water. Why? Men like me don't get happy endings. You don't get to decide that, I whispered. Maybe not. His smile was sad. But I can make sure the darkness that followed me never touches you again. I wanted to argue. To fight him. To make him believe he deserved more than the ashes he carried. But the look in his eyes was a quiet surrender, not to death. Not to fate, but to peace. So I nodded. Once, heavy, he leaned forward and pressed a soft kiss to my forehead, gentle, reverent. A goodbye disguised as a promise. He left without another word. 2 weeks later. A final envelope slipped under my door. No return address. No explanation. Just a single line. The past is buried. Live free. Ah. I sat with it for a long time. Eva curled beside me, her head on my shoulder. Outside, the wind moved through the trees like a lullaby. The world felt both empty and full at the same time. Some loves aren't meant to stay. Some loves don't promise forever. They simply burn bright enough, long enough, to light the way home, and in that quiet, flickering space between loss and hope, Eva reached for my hand, and I realized we were finally safe, finally whole, finally free. A love born in fire had brought us this far, and now, we could walk the rest of the way, on our own. If this story stayed with you, if it made your chest tighten, or your heart ache, in that quiet way only certain stories do, then I'd love for you to stay a little longer. Tap, like if you felt even one moment you didn't want to forget. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story, waiting in the dark. And if you have a second, leave a comment below. Tell me what part hit you the hardest, or which character stayed with you after the final line. And if you know someone who loves emotional, late-night stories about danger, healing, and love that burns bright, feel free to share this video with them too. Your support keeps these stories alive and helps more hearts find their way here.